Hey there, hope you're having a wonderful day. In this video, we're going to create a compound interest calculator that will calculate the amount you will have in your savings account after a certain number of years. And we are going to use this interest rate formula. Basically, A is the final result, P is the starting balance, and then R is the interest rate, and N is the compound frequency. So compound frequency basically means how frequently are you getting paid the interest. And we have a drop down here for daily, monthly, and annually. So this is the main formula that people generally know. But with a savings account, you can add contributions. Basically, every month or day or per year, you can add more money. And with each additional deposit, you would get more interest on your money. So just as an example, let's say I have a starting balance of 5,000, and for contribution, I'm just going to put 0, and I'll put 10 years, and let's say the interest rate was 4.5%. And for compound frequency, let's just leave it as monthly. So if I click calculate, you can see we get this nice chart and we get the result of $7,834.96. So here we have a chart comparing what your savings will be without interest, which is 5,000 after 10 years. So because there's no interest rate after 10 years, you get 5,000 still. Whereas if you had interest accumulating on your savings account, then you would have $7,834.96 after 10 years. Now within the same frequency, if you decide to add, let's say, $1,000 to your bank account every month, then let's calculate this. And you can see the number changes drastically. So without interest, your total contribution is $125,000, and with interest, you would have $159,000. All right, so that's pretty much how this interest rate calculator works. And for the contribution frequency, we're just going to keep it consistent with compound frequency. So if I do daily and I calculate, this means that you're getting your interest rate payout every day and you are contributing 1,000 every day. Whereas if I make this 0, then you can see we get 7,841. And if I change this to monthly and then annually, you can see the more frequently you're getting paid, the more money you'll earn because you're getting interest on top of the interest payment that you are receiving. Alright, so in this tutorial, we're going to be coding this calculator with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And I'll also show you how to use the chart.js library to create this nice chart over here. Alright, so very quickly, I just want to mention that I am working on a new project tutorial series where I create website projects using just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So for this tutorial, we'll be coding the interest rate calculator, and then the next one will be the iPhone calculator. And you can find this list of tutorials on kennyupcoding.com. I have a ton of projects, so I have a ton of game projects in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, as well as some Java game projects and Python projects. And I also have programming basics in Python and C++. And you can find all of these videos on my YouTube channel as well as on kennyupcoding.com. Alright, so I've already gone ahead and created 3 files. We have index.html, style.css, and we have interestcalculator.js. And I've just copy and pasted the formula here. And let's start with the HTML file. Alright, so if we open up the folder where our files are, I can just double click on index.html and you can see we get this blank web page. Alright, so let's add some HTML elements for our calculator. So I'm going to create a div and assign it an ID of interest calculator. And then here I'm going to create a header tag h2 and I'm going to press command and the period key at the same time if you're using Windows. This will open up the emoji picker and I'll look for money and I'll use this emoji and I'll make the header compound interest calculator. And then let's add a paragraph tag for the formula, and the formula is over here. So I'm just going to copy and paste this. And let's save and let's see what we have. So I have my empty web page, and if I refresh this, you can see we have the header and the formula. Now I want to format this exponent better, so I'm going to use a superscript tag. Alright, so over here I'm going to get rid of this and add a sup tag or soup, and let's just put the closing here. And I'm going to copy and paste this and get rid of that. Alright, now let's check our web page. And you can see it's nicely formatted. Now let's add the input boxes for starting balance, contribution, interest rate, and so on. So for each input box, I'm going to create a div tag and I'm going to assign it a class called input block. And within each input block, we're going to add a label for, and the first one I'm going to do starting balance. And I'll put starting balance, and here I'll do P. So this is going to be the text label for the input box. All right, now let's add the input tag for this label. So input type is going to be text, and ID is going to be starting balance, and name is going to be starting balance as well. All right, so let's save. And now if I refresh, you can see we have our text label and our input box. Now we need to do the same thing for the other fields. So I'm going to copy and paste this. And here I'm going to change this to contribution. And for the text, I will make it contribution. And let's call it PMT. And let's copy and paste this and replace starting balance with contribution. All right, now if I refresh, you can see we have another label for contribution and an input box. All right, so now we need to add two more for the interest rate and years. So let's copy and paste this. And for this one, I will put years. Let's change this to years. T. Let's change contribution to years. And then one more. Let's do interest rate. And this will be interest rate R. And actually, let's add a percentage symbol here. So the user would know to enter a percentage and not a decimal number. And let's just copy and paste this and replace these two. All right, now let's refresh our page. And now you can see we have 4 input boxes. And now we need to create a dropdown for the compound frequency. All right, so for the compound frequency, let's add another div class with input block. And the label is going to be for compound, and we'll call this compound frequency. And for the drop-down menu, I will create a select tag with an ID of compound, and name is going to be compound. And let's add some option tags here. So the first option is going to be value 365. So this is for daily compound frequency. So when I select daily in the drop-down menu and click calculate, we're going to take the value 365. So for the text, it will be daily. And let's add another option, value of 12, and this is monthly. And finally, option value of 1, this is annually. All right, now if I reload the page, you can see we have compound frequency with a drop-down, daily, monthly, and annually. And if I refresh the page, you can see it starts off as daily as default because that is the first one we added as an option. So what I can do is I can select monthly as the default option. So I can do selected is equal to selected. And that is because it is more likely that a user would be putting in monthly contribution and receiving monthly payouts. All right, so now if I refresh the page, you can see by default we have monthly selected. Finally, we need to add 2 more things, and that is a button. And we'll add an ID of calculate button. And let's just make the text of the button calculate. And then we need a div ID result. And for now, we'll just make it 0. So the idea here is we're going to have the user click on the calculate button, and it will call a function in JavaScript that will take all the input values and put them into the formula and then get a result. And then it'll take this div tag with the ID results and populate that value here. All right, so let's refresh. And you can see we have a calculate button and 0 as a result. Okay, so that's all we need for the HTML. Next, we need to style this up. So let's style the interest calculator. So in CSS, if you use the pound symbol or hash symbol, you're getting the ID interest calculator, and that is the div here. So all of our tags live inside this interest calculator div. So here I'm just going to make the background color white smoke, and let's add a border, 5 pixels, solid, and the color will be light gray. All right, now if we refresh the page, you can see we have the interest calculator here with a border of light gray and the background color is white smoke. Now let's add the width, and make it 400 pixels. And the height is going to be 550 pixels. Let's round the borders of our interest calculator. So border radius is going to be 25 pixels. And let's add some padding. We'll have 10 pixels. And finally, I want to align the text and make everything appear at the center. And if I refresh the page, you can see we have our calculator here. Everything is centered. The borders are rounded, and we added some padding. And the width is 400 pixels and the height is 550 pixels. Alright, now I want to style the input blocks. So for each label and input box pair, I want to add some spacing in between. And I want the boxes to align to the right. So here I'm going to do interest calculator. So this is getting the interest calculator ID, and we're going to do dot input block. So this means that all the tags with the input block class within this interest calculator div tag, we're going to apply this styling. So I'm going to do margin bottom of 10 pixels and text align will make it right. Alright, so now if I refresh the page, you can see we have some spacing of 10 pixels and everything is aligned to the right. Now I want to style this button, make the button bigger and make this text bigger. So for calculate button, we'll make the width 175 pixels and the height is going to be 50 pixels. And the font size is going to be 1 EM. And for the result number, we're just going to make the font size 2 EM. Alright, now let's refresh the page and you can see the button is bigger now and the result is also bigger. Now we have our calculator styled up. I just want to center it and change the font. So let's go ahead and do that. So up here, I'm going to add some styling for the body. So I'm going to do display flex, justify content, center, align items, center. Alright, now we refresh the page. You can see the calculator is at the center of our page and I want it to be exactly at the center of the page. You can see it's not vertically centered. So for that, I'm going to do height 100 VH. And now if I refresh the page, you can see it is centered in the middle. And I don't like this scroll bar showing, so I'm going to hide it. So to hide it, I'll do overflow hidden. And then finally, let's change the font. So font family is going to be Arial. Alright, now let's refresh the page. And you can see the scroll bar is gone and the font changed to Arial. Alright, so we have all our UI set up. Now we just need to make this calculate button work. So the way this works is we're going to have the user enter some inputs and we're going to pull the input values. And we can do so because each input tag has an ID. Alright, so now within our JavaScript, let's create the calculate function. So first I need to get the button. So const btn is equal to document.get element by ID, and the ID is calculate button. So we're using JavaScript to get this button tag using the ID calculate button. And for the button, we'll add an event listener. It's going to listen for a click, and if it gets a click, then we'll call a function called calculate. So let's define that here. And I'm just going to take the formula and paste it in here. So now we need to pull in all the input values. So let p is equal to, and when you get a value from an input tag, it's going to be a string because it is a text box. So I'm going to do number, and essentially I'm just going to convert the value from string to a number. So let's get the value. So p is the starting balance. So I'll do document.get element by ID starting balance. So this is the tag and we want the value. So I'm going to do dot value. Let's do the same for the interest rate. So let r is equal to number document.get element by ID interest rate dot value. And because this is a percentage, we want to divide by 100. Next, we need the compound frequency. So let n is equal to number document.get element by ID compound dot value. So this is going to get the select tag and get the value from whatever option is selected. So here we have the select tag with compound and we have 3 values. So we are either getting 365, 12, or 1. Now let's add t So document.getElement by ID, and this is years. And finally, we have the contribution, so PMT. And this is going to be contribution.value. Now let's do the calculations. So here I see that we have 1 plus r divided by n to the power of n times t. We have it appear twice. So I'm going to calculate this value once and save it in a variable. So let temp is equal to math.pow, and we're going to get this inner value. So this is 1 plus r divided by n, and then we calculate the power of that value to the power of n times t. And then we'll break down this formula into two parts. So this is part 1, where you have no contributions, and we have part 2, where we do have contributions. So let result 1 is equal to p times temp, and let result 2 is equal to pmt times parentheses of temp minus 1 divided by parentheses r divided by n. And then the result will be result 1 plus result 2. And now let's populate that result into the result tag. So document.getElementById result.innerText is equal to result. Alright, now let's test our function. So let's make a starting balance of 5,000. Let's put a monthly contribution of 1,000 over 10 years and 4.5%. If I calculate, so we have a bug somewhere. Let's right click, inspect. Console, we have no output, so there's no error. So I think what happened was I forgot to link my JavaScript file to my HTML. And yeah, so I have my CSS here, but I forgot to link my JavaScript file. So here, let's add a script tag. Source is going to be interestCalculator.js. Alright. Alright, now let's do that again. Starting balance of 5,000, contribution of 1,000 over 10 years and 4.5 interest rate. And we compound monthly, so let's calculate. And let's see. Okay, maybe we have an error this time. And we do. Okay, so we have document is not defined. Okay, so I have a typo. Alright, so over here on this line, I have a typo. This should be document. Alright, now let's try one more time. 5,000, 1,000, 10, 4.5, and calculate. There you go. We have our value here. And you can see this value is quite long because of the decimal places, so we should round it up to 2 decimal places. So here I'm going to do parentheses, and we'll do .to fixed. And this is going to be 2 for 2 decimal places. Alright, one more go. 5,000, 1,000, 10, and 4.5. Nice. And if I make this 0, alright, so it looks like our calculator is working with this formula. And now I want to show you how to add the charts down here. So the library we'll be using is free and it's called chart.js. You can access this library by going to chart.js.org. I'll also link it in the video description. And then from here, we click Get Started. And then on the side, we have Getting Started. Click on this. And you can see we have a step-by-step guide. So the first thing I need to do is add this div tag in my HTML, as well as this script tag. So let's copy and paste these two. And I'm going to paste it over here. Let's fix the formatting. And I'm going to take this script tag and place it out here. So we have our canvas and we have the script tag. So we have that completed. Now we just need to take this and paste it into our JavaScript file. And I'm going to do that over here. So we have a new chart and I'm going to take out this variable and paste it over here. So we have context and we have my chart, and this is creating a new chart. So let's format this a bit. All right, so we formatted it and we have a reference to the canvas element called my chart, and we are basically creating this chart onto that canvas element using this ctx context variable. All right, now if I refresh and put in some values and click calculate, you can see we have a chart. So let's modify the chart to display the value of our savings with and without interest. So in the labels, let's get rid of this and let's add 2 labels. One is without interest and the other is with interest. And then here we just need 2 values in our data. So the first value is just your savings without interest rate. So that is going to be the starting balance, P, plus the contribution, PMT, times the frequency, times the number of year. And then for the interest, we'll just plug in result. All right, so now let's try again. 5,000, 1,000, 10, 4.5, and calculate. Okay, so now we have our chart showing our results. And one more thing, if I change this to 0, our value is going to change. So if I click calculate, you can see the chart stays the same. So we want to clear the chart and create a new one for the updated values. And according to the website, we have to destroy the previous chart in order to create a new one using the same canvas. So in order to destroy this chart, we need to assign it to a variable. So up here, I'm going to create a new variable and call it cur_chart. And then here, I will assign cur_chart to new chart. And before we do the assignment, I'm going to destroy the previous chart. So I'll do if cur_chart is not equal to null, cur_chart.destroy. All right. And I just realized the label still says number of volts. So let's change this to savings. All right, so let's do 5,000, 1,000, 10 years, and 4.5% monthly. Calculate. And we have our result here without interest and with interest. And if I decide not to put in any contribution, let's say 0, and click calculate, then the graph updates, okay? And I can make this annually or daily, and you can see it updates. All right, so that's it for this tutorial. Feel free to continue working on this project if you want. There are some things that you can add. For instance, if I put in a non-number here and I click calculate, you can see we get this error result, not a number. So maybe you can do some type checking in the calculate function. And if you want, you can play around with the styling. So maybe you want to style the input boxes or the button or the drop down. Maybe you want to play around with the chart and make it a line graph instead of a bar graph. And one more thing, and that is with the formula, we assume that the contribution and compound frequency will be the same. That is not always the case. For instance, I can have a daily compound frequency and a monthly contribution. However, with the current formula, we take contribution frequency and compound frequency to be the same. And this would be very challenging to do because it is highly mathematical. So I actually tried to figure out the formula myself and I couldn't, and I had to ask this AI to help me out. Basically, the formula would be if we had monthly contributions and daily compounding, then it would be this crazy formula over here. So if you want to give that a try, it is up to you. But yeah, that's all for this tutorial. And if you found this tutorial helpful, make sure you give the video a like. If you have any questions, let me know down below in the comments. And if you want to stay up to date for more tutorials like this one, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.